insisted on naming her paranoid, and unfortunately, eventually took her to an emergency room in a hospital, where again, once again, she experienced all sorts of irregular procedures. So welcome, Lorraine. Thanks again for joining me this morning.
Thank you so much for having me again. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So Lorraine, shall we just pick up the story where we left off? And I think you had talked about how at the hospital itself you found all sorts of irregularities, right? The psychiatrist who was supposed to see you never did, but signed off on some documentation, right?
That's true. Actually, when I was there, I was asked to remove my clothing and be in a gown. So they confiscated my clothing, my personal belongings.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
They took it all away, and then and you said they subjected you to all sorts of tests, right?
yes, a urinalysis, a blood test, and all I wanted to do was get out of there. And each person I spoke with, I said, I'm here against my will. I filed some police incident reports, and they're retaliating because they don't want to acknowledge the truth of what's happening at my house.
That's right. And then, they make you take these tests, which perhaps is part of their protocol, but has no relation whatsoever to what you called the police for, right? The
None
vandalism and break-in.
whatsoever. None whatsoever. But when I received a copy of my report
Yeah.
back through Oprah, this is the incident report. I'll read it.
Okay.
Now, it's a little ambiguous because the reader would think that I'm the thief, because what they said is the reason, they put the codes in here for, so the offense codes, offense,
Oh, okay.
theft, and PESS. PESS is the organization that hired out the mental health assessor. It's Psychiatric Evaluation Services.
Okay.
PESS.
That's very interesting, though. What are these codes? What are these codes supposed to designate? What is that?
Well, it says offense.
Yeah.
So they're saying theft, that I created an offense? No, I'm reporting a
You were
theft.
reporting theft, right?
Absolutely. Right. So this is where they're jumbling up the report to make it's a false flag. It's total slander.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
This is
So
obviously in
what
your
it says
face.
here, and I'm not, it's the narrative. So we've got a narrative here.
Yeah.
Theft. Mental health screening, transport to Central State Hospital for psychological evaluation. Code 3, I don't know what that is. BWR. And then it says MO. Responding to my address for a theft report and screener evaluation. Victim so they named me victim. Victim transported to Central State Hospital. And then they give Sergeant Carey, Patrolman Casella, and I responded to my address for a theft report and screener investigation. Upon arrival, a Monmouth Medical Center screener, Tina Booth, was already on scene. Tina and I responded to the front door of the above-mentioned residence. I spoke with me. Lorraine related that she wanted to report a theft on eBay. It wasn't on eBay. It was in my house.
Right. It was off your eBay items.
Absolutely. So here it is again where they're misrepresenting the facts. And besides
falsification and misrepresentation of fact.
Absolutely. And also because I did this via email. I decided, you know what? I'm not calling them to my house anymore because they don't report the facts of what's happening here. So I sent an email so that it can't be distorted.
Right.
It doesn't matter what I do because they distort it anyway. They don't cut and paste verbatim whatever it is that I'm writing. So it says, I gave Lorraine a property loss report to be completed with the alleged stolen items listed. he didn't give me the report yet. He was holding on to it until I walked out that door to the EMS, like around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I never received that copy until the very end.
I see.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says Tina spoke with Lorraine and determined that Lorraine was in need of a psychological screening.
Wow. How did she determine this?
I asked her this. I asked, what criteria did you utilize to make that determination?
Yeah.
She said something like, oh, well, you're not sleep. She first of all, she didn't answer that. But when we were outside by the tree and she was asking me questions like, how do you sleep? And I said, well, actually, last night I was up all night long. I didn't tell her that I was up nursing a cat that was about to die.
Yeah.
I mean, it's none of her business.
The
But,
whole thing is none of her business. Imagine walking in and asking somebody what their sleep habits are.
but get this, I'm just going to fast forward a little bit. While I was in the EMS truck, I'm chit-chatting with the EMS worker who's taking notes on me. And I said, oh, you must work really long hours. So he said, actually, he says, I work 18 hours straight. I said, you're kidding me. I
Wow.
said, you don't get to sleep for 18 hours straight?
That's a really interesting point. So you have EMS workers, supposed paramedics, working for 18 hours straight and showing up at people's houses and trying to escort them to emergency rooms, saying that they have sleep deprivation?
Yes, yes. And so Ms. Booth says that because my sleep patterns, and this is my whole life. I don't sleep 8 hours like the normal person. I never did ever, even as a teenager. And what's normal for me is not going to be normal for somebody else. But I wanted to make the point that EMS worker works 18 hours straight. And I guarantee there are some police officers that work.
Oh, I'm sure.
Nobody's giving them a mental health evaluation.
No, nurses and doctors, by the way. Nurses, doctors, residents on call, they all work extreme shifts.
Yes. So she determined that I needed a psychological screening. Tina completed a screening outreach request for police transport and supervision. Now, we all know that this was all set up before.
Yeah. The whole thing sounds so bogus. Clearly, you were fine. You had, if you stayed up last night, or the night before, taking care of your sick animal, that was your business.
Absolutely.
And it's what's really shocking about this is that you were reporting burglary, break-ins to your house, and theft. And what you received was a so-called psych evaluation by a so-called mental health officer whose license you say you could not locate, right?
Yes.
So, and then this woman and this police officer ultimately strong-armed you into in a matter of speaking, by under threat of arrest, into the EMS vehicle and took you to the local ER. So that's the whole questionable aspect of the story, which is no doubt being replayed across the country in other cases as well. But it's precisely what we need to question. What right do the police have to do this to perfectly sane, completely safe people
Yes.
who do not in any way pose a threat to society?
Well, get this. The way I look at it is bullying. It's mobbing and it's bullying. And honestly, they need to be out chasing after the real criminals.
That's correct.
The real criminals are not going to benefit them financially. It's better for them to target somebody that's got a house that she's lived in for 30 years with nice furniture and steal her clothes and her jewelry and her belongings, because we could make a lot more money off of her than that common criminal down in Trenton or whatever.
Right. Who's actually doing something criminal, and needs to be stopped. So all this taxpayer money that's going to the police department is being wasted on these trips, on these huge EMS trips with,
Yes.
4 sergeants and detectives and mental health officers and so forth, running involuntary holds. I will look up police code number 3, but I suspect it has something to do with this kind of thing, a psychiatric hold. So, they're wasting money on this and
Lot of money.
targeting people like you who should be absolutely be left alone to live in peace and who, in fact, appealed to them for protection. You went to report burglary. You were
Yeah,
looking for protection from the police, but what you received was the opposite.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
I came across a quote. Um, when reporting a crime is treated as having committed a crime, you're ruled by criminals.
oh, well,
And
that's
the
absolutely
person
true.
who that quote belongs to is Edward Snowden.
I remember this. He put it out on Twitter, I think. I do recall
Yes.
seeing it. But that's absolutely true. It appears as if, and this is how we excavate and find out that we are dealing with criminal networks. If the police can do this, does it not mean that the police is colluding? And what you are suggesting right now is that this is connected to a larger picture, this picture of real estate takeover,
Yes.
asset stripping, moving in
Yes.
and taking over somebody's property.
Because
So,
what happens is, you know, and this is what they do, they're destroying my property. So to the outside, it may appear as if my property is deteriorating,
right.
not caring for it. So then other people are looking like, wow, her property's really deteriorating, and then they set up like the neighbor next door to call the police on me, the one
Oh
that they
my
moved
goodness.
here.
Hmm.
And that's what they do. They create all these false flags,
Yes.
all these setups so that they can steal your property, because if they can declare you mentally unfit or
Hmm.
psychologically impaired, they can get you in a mental institution for a week one. They can come into my house and do whatever they please,
Hmm.
right? They've already done that. They've already illegally searched my home. They've already stolen thousands of dollars in items. They've already damaged property in probably $500,000 worth of, between the property, my furniture, my clothes
Hmm.
and stuff.
Hmm.
And you don't put a dollar amount on the loss, the murder of an animal either.
No, no.
Whole
It
other
sounds like you have been subjected to so many crimes, really,
Yes.
in terms of break-in, property damage, landscaping damage to your trees, etc. And of course, the death of your pets. So, and then when you have a police department which simply does not assist, which does not help, their job, I would think, is to bring the level of crime down in the neighborhood and to keep an eye on people's houses and make sure they're not burgled. But what if the police is a part of the setup? Part of the group of criminals who are indeed doing this. What if
Well,
they're not just turning a blind eye, but what if they're a part of it? And that's the unfortunate situation we're facing today in this country and literally around the world. I mean, this is the situation. This is the social terrorism that many people are reporting. So,
and I was
very,
unaware that it's happening around the world. I really
mhm.
was. At first, I thought this is only happening to me.
Yeah.
I have been contacted by dozens of women that this
Hmm.
has happened to around the same age. Some very educated, like more than myself, who've had like stellar careers and
And
have
these are women from around the country or around the world?
in the United States. Yeah,
And
mostly in
so
the United States.
older women who possibly are living alone.
Yes, they're living alone. Yes,
Okay, older women living alone but who have property are
have
being targeted
property.
in this fashion.
Yes. And there was one woman I spoke with. She has farm animals, and they killed all of her chickens. And so,
Yeah, unbelievable. So, what do you think the intention is? You've stated that the intention possibly is to move in temporarily and steal more stuff, do more property damage.
oh
But
no,
is
I
there a
really,
larger?
they're trying to deteriorate the property so they can push me out and take it over. They want to, this whole thing, this whole false flag thing, taking me out for two purposes. One, they know I've collected evidence because I had told them over the phone. I said, if that neighbor across the street, if I catch her one more time on my porch with a key in my front door, her photo is going to be all over the internet.
You mean to say your neighbor, you actually saw her through your surveillance cameras
At
on
two
your phone?
o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, one of my cameras caught the audio of somebody breaking in, and the other one was I think I mentioned yesterday, I was going into a sleep. My
Hmm.
cats are sleeping next to me. Suddenly they jerk up. I wake up. They run to the staircase. I run to the staircase, and there's somebody with a key in my front door. I see
Wow.
I have a partially leaded glass front door, so I
Hmm.
can see there's a person there. And then
This is so frightening. What did you do?
I went halfway down the stairs and I'm thinking, one, my house alarm's up. Like you start to think really quickly, my house alarm, there's no way I'm going to be able to get
Alert.
open that door and get that person. So what I did is I ran upstairs and I went into bed thinking, am I going to call somebody? But as that happened, like instantaneously, the light went on at the neighbor's house diagonally across the street. This is
Okay.
early in the morning. It's like 2:30 in the morning.
Does she have a motion sensor light?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is if somebody had walked into her house or across her drive or whatever.
Yes.
So in other words, it could very well have been her, is what you're suggesting.
Absolutely.
Okay. But did you
I
hear
don't
the
want to
sound
say
of a
too much
car or you
more
didn't
because we
see?
are live, but I'll tell you, who she is,
Okay.
who I found out she is.
Oh, very
Yeah, they
interesting.
moved in some law enforcement into this.
Really? So are you suggesting that this is so this is really getting to the heart of it then, if this woman is in some way connected with law enforcement?
That would be the case. Yeah.
Okay, so law enforcement is so certain aspects, we don't want to tar everybody with the same brush. Obviously, there's good police, bad
No,
police.
there's good police there, and I'm sure because I'm absolutely certain there are good ones even at this police department, but
Mhm.
either they're not part of this little network
Okay.
or they're fearful for their jobs because let's face it, this is a nice place to work.
Yeah.
It's a white collar crime. You don't have to worry about like a cop going out here and getting murdered. Like
Hmm.
if they were in Trenton or Camden or Newark, it's not
Hmm.
like that here. I mean, this is white collar crime, shoplifting and car
Hmm.
accidents and,
Things like that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
stuff like
So,
that. This is just all white collar crime. And it's a lovely area. It's very pretty.
mhm.
So I would imagine that any police officer would love to work here.
Yes, and no doubt, as you say, there are some very good police officers in this department, in your
There
local police
absolutely
department.
are. But
Mhm.
I guarantee that they're fearful. I mean,
Yeah.
just think of it this way. You're working for a company, a corporation, whatever. You've got your job, but your boss is a tyrant.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
That is a very good point. And perhaps at this point, we should mention the lawsuit being brought against the chief of police in your neighborhood, right? In your police
Absolutely.
department.
That's a good yes. So let's discuss the lawsuit.
Now, is this chief of police still in power as chief
It
of police?
certainly is.
Very interesting because the lawsuit is absolutely frightful and it shows a side of him that is incredible. And I recommend that everybody go to my website and just type in police in the search box, and this page will come up, which I just posted yesterday. Lorraine sent me the lawsuit that a police officer at the Manalapan Police Department has filed against the town of Manalapan, against the police department there, and against the chief of police, whose first name I forget, but whose last name is Fountain.
Fountain, Michael Fountain.
Michael Fountain. And in the story of that lawsuit, you will read about the incredible things Mr. Fountain has done that created the provocation for this lawsuit. So I'll let Lorraine tell the story.
Okay, so when I read through the lawsuit, actually it was kismet. I was searching the internet and somebody actually cut and pasted this lawsuit into a document sharing forum on the
Okay.
internet. And it's like somebody did that intentionally.
Somebody was giving you a little heads up.
So I downloaded it and I read through it and I have some bulletproof here, bullets
Cool.
here.
Let me
Um,
share screen and bring it up, actually.
oh, let's see.
Okay, so this is the page. I just posted Lorraine's PDF that she sent me, plus her notes. All of these are her notes. I simply posted your notes
Okay,
verbatim.
you've got the notes there. Good. Yes.
Yeah.
So what happened was evidently there was a hockey club that some of the police officers belonged to. And
Right.
of course, some of them drank, some of them didn't drink, but
Mm.
evidently the chief of police, he would kind of bait the officers with, if you win this goal or whatever, you can pinch my girlfriend's tits, and you
Yeah, so
literally,
yeah, so
you know,
that
or
exactly
grab
that
her ass.
yeah, I mean that is just reading this is mind blowing, right? I mean, I think I literally fell over reading this lawsuit. So literally this guy, the chief of police, was prostituting his girlfriend out to his own subordinates, to his own officers. And
Yes,
he was egging them on and he was literally offering her up for use and exploitation by them.
absolutely.
And I understand from the way this lawsuit is written that pretty much the entire police force was pretty aghast. Or maybe there were some who weren't, I don't know. But a lot of these officers just went ahead with this because, as you say, of fear, right? For their position.
Absolutely. I mean, and things like this happen in every organization. So the police department would be no different. The only difference is that they're upholding the law.
Hmm.
They're supposed to be the pillars of the community, protecting people and property, and being a role model.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, which is a joke, isn't it? Yeah. So they are enforcing the law, protecting people, and this is what they are doing in their off time in their little hockey club.
Right.
So, and worse, right? So this particular police officer his wife was subjected to some even worse sexually charged conversation from this chief of police, Mr. Fountain.
Yes. And initially, the officer wasn't going to mention it, and then he wrote an anonymous complaint to Internal Affairs, and then he decided to just own it. But
Yeah.
after he owned it, he was terminated.
Yeah, all sorts
So,
of things happened to him, right? His gun was removed from him.
yes,
Several police officers showed up at his house and removed his personal guns.
yes,
And then what else? He was terminated.
yes. And then they brought him back, but he was subjected to a mental health. His
Oh,
mental
right,
health was questioned, so he was subjected to a fitness for duty evaluation, which is the mental
right,
health exam.
right. And that's what you have listed over here, right? Oh,
Yes,
he was labeled an
he
enemy.
was labeled an enemy.
And you've mentioned secret practices here, and that's interesting in itself because in the course of writing out this lawsuit, this officer has detailed various irregular practices within this department, right? Whereby other police officers were being kept tabs on, were being investigated by this chief, were being followed when they had sick days.
Yes,
Other officers were set up to go to certain locations where they might be and check to see if they were there.
yes.
Things
That's
like that.
above and beyond what a normal supervisor would do with their workers. So, you know, um,
And
item 69 dash hyphen 73, the
mhm,
chief's paranoia about officer sick days, that he
right.
would follow officers on their sick days to make sure they were truly sick and that they were at home and not
Yeah.
out doing something else. I mean, who does that?
Who does that? And when you think about the whole police force, we're talking about taxpayer money here being used for the police force. And this is being used in this fashion. This actually sounds to me, it's like, some kind of high school soap opera, you know?
Absolutely. It's extremely juvenile.
Extremely juvenile, extremely petty, very malicious, and shows a high degree of paranoia on the part of this chief. It's almost like he was striving to hold together his little fiefdom, as Mr. Hedden reported, the officer who's filed this lawsuit. Because certainly he's running a little fiefdom, and he's terrorizing all the officers into submission over here. This
It
is
appears that way because, again, when officers enter the police force, some of them are quite young. They're like in their early 20s.
mhm.
So I would imagine that somebody that young would be very intimidated and, wanting to prove themselves and do whatever
Yes.
is asked of them.
Yes, and because they maintain strict hierarchies, that's precisely what the younger, newer officers would be trying to do. Trying to play the game the way it's played. So, in other words, they're being inculcated into this little old boys club with Mr. Fountain at the head of the pyramid over here. The other thing that struck me about this lawsuit was something else, a real irregularity in terms of how the administrative days were being handled, right? Certain monies were being misappropriated or administrative days were being
Yes.
misappropriated.
Yes. And what was even more interesting is that,
Let me actually click on the lawsuit and I'll
okay,
find the spot. There were a couple things. The other thing is this chief actually made a wrongful accusation of this officer misappropriating funds for some benevolence fund, I think, that they had. So here's the
that,
lawsuit.
that he was utilizing township funds for personal use, something of
Yes.
that nature.
Yes. Oh, and this is number 54. This is the thing that I was thinking about. Fountain had instituted an unauthorized practice through which officers were given administrative days in lieu of overtime pay,
Right.
which the township was unaware of. And this guy had instituted this just on his own. He didn't want to give these guys overtime pay, so he gave them admin days, which I presume are days off, right?
Days off. I would imagine they're days off, but you could imagine that how difficult it is to get days off, in
Mhm.
addition to the regular holidays and stuff as an officer.
Right, right. So this was an improper practice, which I guess the township didn't like, and Fountain threw a big fit about this, lambasted the plaintiff for sharing such information with the township, slammed his wallet down, screamed at him that his badge was bigger than the plaintiff's, and who was he to notify Manalapan about a practice that was a secret amongst the members of the MPD, which is the Manalapan Police Department. So, that to me is very interesting. Secret practices, because in
Secret
a sense,
practices.
when we look at this whole targeting phenomenon, we are talking about secret practices. We are talking about secret practices by police departments, secret practices by fusion centers, which include the FBI, which is part of the police mechanism in this country. So, how can these secret practices be condoned? How can they be permitted to exist? It is shocking.
It is shocking. But what I really appreciate is that this is a lawsuit by a police officer. So if there's
Yes.
anybody who knows what's going on within the department, it's another police officer.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how grateful I am to this police officer for standing up for his rights, for speaking up, and for actually suing the chief of police for all of these things that he
Yes.
has written out here.
Yes, and it's interesting that that it mentions that there were unauthorized investigations, that the chief kept pictures of the officers in surveillance locations covered and
Oh,
sealed,
yes, yes, that's what you have. I need to go back to that page
that
because
there were
that's what you
private and
have.
undocumented investigations of officers that were baseless, and he deemed
Yeah.
them enemies. I
Oh,
mean,
that's right. Number 76. Yeah.
how do you deem your own officers as enemies?
Yes. And how do you start naming different officers in the police department as enemies of the chief? That's almost a situation whereby you are setting up for harassment and setting up for self-justification and self-rationalizing of that harassment. And in a sense, that is the situation extended and extrapolated that we are facing in society, where people are being named wrongfully by the DHS, by fusion centers, as enemies of the state, enemy combatants. We're talking about moms and dads, retired dads and moms, who are in no way armed, combatants.
No.
Nobody's combating with the local police department. Nobody's combating with the local fusion center or with DHS. There's no combating going on, but you are being named an enemy combatant. And then you are being thrown on these watch lists, and from there being trafficked into military field weapons testing programs, into medical and university and military and intelligence weapons research programs, neuro research, neurotech research, all sorts of research, artificial intelligence, cybernetics, etc. So people who are being thrown onto this watch list are, wrongfully being named and labeled. So this is corruption. This is, I think, this
simple.
Yeah, and this lawsuit, actually puts all of this under the spotlight.
Yes.
If one police department can behave like this, I shudder to imagine what other police departments are doing.
Well, I watch a lot of YouTubes, and I saw one. It was an investigation done by Channel 4, I believe, and they went to dozens of police departments in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to file a complaint. They wanted to see what the process would be like to file a complaint. And only 2 of all of the ones that they went to actually gave them a complaint form. Some of them were actually harassed and chased out of the organization, threatened. They would not provide them with a complaint form.
That's really wild, isn't it? So basically, that's censorship, and that's sort of fascist tyranny.
Yes.
It sounds like, you can't complain, you can't make suggestions, you just sort of shut up and put up and deal with whatever we dish out.
See, what happens in the workplace, generally in the workplace, if you've got a complaint, you can go to the Department of Labor and, report them, and they can do an investigation. But I don't know how it works with a government agency. I think, you would go to the prosecutor's office, right?
That's
but I went to the prosecutor's office, and they refer me back to the police department.
Oh, and I think in this case, Mr. Hedden actually went to internal affairs first. And, when he was wrongfully accused, he says that Chief Fountain went to the prosecutor's office and actually lodged a complaint, like recorded or documented a complaint against him, misrepresenting him, of course, and accusing him of misappropriation of funds, etc., which was proven to be lies, because later on the finances of this particular fund that he was a part of were audited and found to be immaculate. So that's a good question, though. Who do you go to if you're inside the police?
Yeah. So I would think that you can go to the Attorney General's office of the state of New Jersey, but I think it's even beyond that. I think you need to go to the federal government. I mean, who do each police department report to? I mean, who governs that? The governor?
That's a very interesting question, because I think at the level of these police departments, and of course everything is a corporation, right? I mean, he's suing the township of Manalapan, which is a corporation, that's stated in the lawsuit itself. So literally we are looking at corporations, and this is corporate America for you. Yeah, everything is a corporation. If the township is a corporation, the police department is a corporation. Who exactly do you go to? What is is there a hierarchy? Do you go to the county government? Do you go to the state government?
Right.
Beyond that?
I don't know. I'm really not that politically savvy. And until, all this targeting stuff, I wasn't involved. I didn't even know the difference.
Right. Yeah. Well,
between a Democrat and a Republican. But it further goes on to state that the chief bragged about maintaining undocumented files on many officers, which contain quote unquote dirt that he can use as leverage in the event that an officer complains about anything, and that they would carry around secret files on people. I guarantee there's some secret file on me that somebody's carrying around.
Yes, and part of this whole system of targeting that they have established has to do not just with secret files, but with falsification of information and falsified files. They are going to such great efforts to create these falsified records. And then, they run around to the neighborhood and, as you say, engage in slander and libel by character assassinating you to your neighbors. So this is an incredible lawsuit because it brings to the fore all of these issues that police departments are engaging in, the FBI is engaging in, DHS is engaging in. They are misusing their powers of authority, they're misusing their badges, they're abusing their powers in this way by turning against, and I should mention, good, honest, upright American citizens. I mean, look at you. You are such a community-minded person. You have done so much in your community. And for you to be targeted in this way is outrageous.
It's outrageous.
You know?
And what they did is they set up so many scenarios to make it so difficult for me to sell my house. They don't want me to sell my house. They want to steal it from me.
Mm-hmm.
That's their MO.
Yeah.
Value it, steal it. You know, so anybody who's listening to this, if you want to come and live with me for a little while, I'm looking for a roommate.
Well, yes, you want to be a little discerning about that, though.
I need to be very discerning, very discerning.
Yes, as you know. So even if there are people out there, you know, who would be glad to help around the house and do some landscaping for you, etc., you know, for whatever room and board you might offer, you know, being discerning in this time period is so very important because, as you say, we are actually living in situations of crime in our neighborhoods. You know, extreme crime. It's outrageous what's going on. So you don't want somebody coming into your house and engaging in the same sort of practices as your neighbor, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I hired a painter who painted and installed new floors.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm convinced that he is in cahoots with the police department because he pretty much stole $4,100 from me, and
Oh,
he did a
no.
horrible job. Yeah, he did a horrible job here. No, he offered investigative services, understanding what was going on at my house. He says, "I've got this great guy for you, who he's like this great private investigator."
Okay, so he was a private investigator and painter.
Well, you know, I was under duress and stress and selling my house, and I've had him work here before. So I trusted him.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you know, I'll get you the receipt in a week. Well, a week goes by, no receipt, no nothing, no report. He's talking on the phone with this guy. But you know what? It was a scam.
Yeah.
It was fraud. And
Yeah.
he stole $4,100 from me. The checks were written to him. So it wasn't like I handed him cash. I have canceled checks. And the Manalapan Police Department, of course, I wrote to the prosecutor's office about it. Their website says, if you're a victim of fraud, contact us.
Yeah.
Well, I did, and they're referring me back to the police department.
And when you report anything to the police department, you're sicked with a mental health officer showing up at your doorstep. Now, you said, actually, just getting back to the issue of those police, you said you had another visit 2 weeks later from the same police department.
Listen to this. Yes. Mm-hmm. So they hauled me off December 10th, December 31st, New Year's Eve.
Oh.
At 9:33 a.m., I receive a phone call from a police officer. I didn't make out his name. He said it so fast, but he gave me his badge number. He said, oh, that's all you really need is my badge number. He said, I'd like to discuss a matter with you.
A matter out of the blue? You hadn't called them. There was no connection with them at that point.
No, within 15 minutes. Now, mind you, I woke up late that day. I was upstairs cleaning. I wasn't going to answer the phone or the door for anybody, you know, whoever it was. Mm-hmm. So then I get my doorbell rings. I look out the window and it's like, I see a cop car on my driveway. And he rings it again and it's like, I can't believe this. I mean, I can't even get a package delivered this fast, but the police are here like nanosecond, you know?
Yeah, and after calling you and informing you that they're arriving, but very mysterious, not letting you know why they would want to visit.
They needed to discuss a matter with me. So they show up at the door. They evidently didn't leave anything, like not a flyer or a message, not in my mailbox, not at the front door, but I didn't answer the door. And then I ran to get my camera, because I knew that my porch cameras would be disabled. And of course, there's no image on my porch camera. And by the time I reached for my camera, poof, he's gone.
Oh, is that right? How very interesting. So as you were looking for your camera, he left.
He left.
Do you feel you have any kind of surveillance inside your house? Like camera surveillance? I understand they can do this kind of thing with micro bugs and stuff.
I believe that they're watching everything I do. And I can attest to this because I've hidden things in my house that
Hmm.
they found.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
happens to all of us,
Yeah.
unfortunately. All of us seem to need to use private investigators on an ongoing basis to come and get the bugs out of our houses.
Well, I have to say,
Mm.
and this is part of my story. Last year, I did hire a private investigator, and when he left, he stayed in my house. I went shopping and stuff, and he just wanted to listen to see if anybody would come into the house. But
Hmm.
I knew that that wasn't going to happen because they're watching everything that's going on. When he left, my house was broken into again.
Oh
I
no,
replaced my locks 3 times. I've had 4 different camera systems. 4.
that's wild.
I've spent so much money, but they're
Yeah,
all being disabled, scrambled, and I sold a whole set of
yeah.
Arlo cameras to an attorney, and they're working fine in her office. But they weren't working fine here because they were being de-authenticated, meaning that the signal was being
Hmm.
intentionally disconnected from the Wi-Fi and stuff. And I know this to be true because I still have some old school equipment in my house that doesn't
Hmm.
automatically reset.
Hmm.
So, like, if I lose electricity and it goes back on again, those items don't reset, but they start to flash
I see. I
to
see.
show that my electricity's been intentionally interrupted. So I have
Yes.
2 or 3 of such items, and I can always tell when they're messing with my electricity.
Okay. Yeah. They have all sorts of means of from the outside actually knocking things out as well. I mean, they drain batteries, of course. They drain batteries on cell phones, on little MP3s and stuff, but they also, MP3 players, I mean, but they also interfere with equipment, with things like blenders and dishwashers
Yes.
and
Oh,
toasters and stuff.
absolutely. I'm on my 3rd printer. I've gone through vacuum cleaners. They just broke another one upstairs. It's just amazing.
This is actually a good thing to also stress. So basically, we are talking about a crime network that's connected with law enforcement and fusion centers, possibly through contracts, or just possibly as some kind of, subterranean network, criminal network, who have access to electrical weapons that can be used from the outside, remote electrical weapons to destroy. What are they called? These blenders and things. I'm not getting the right word at this point in time, but that kind of equipment, home equipment, any electrical equipment that you use at home.
Yes, any electrical equipment. They did the same thing. Because they've turned my electricity on and off so much, they actually shorted out a heating air
Mhm.
conditioning unit. It's an expensive unit, so I have to replace it. So
Yeah.
it's systematic. They've destroyed so much. But Karen Stewart mentioned she was interviewed by Michael Barden, a targeted individual who has his own YouTube channel.
Hmm.
She said the prime job for these perps is to be moved into a house that and they live right next door to the target.
Oh,
They
yes,
get
I
paid
would imagine.
$1,000 a month.
They get
Tax
paid for
free.
sitting around to destroy other people. I mean, this is what they are doing. They are
This is
spending their lives.
premeditated.
And, we are talking at this point of destruction of equipment in the house, but they also destroy people's bodies and people's lives. They're using
Absolutely.
weaponry. And so this is the other thing. This is the other thing that, of course, is not spoken about in media. And so people imagine it doesn't exist. And this is how the police, by the way, getting back to the police, are able to get away with their little catch 22 psychiatric protocol over here. So if anybody mentions this kind of thing, this kind of weaponry, which is non-lethal weaponry, possibly classified, but anti-personnel spectrum and radiation and sonic weapons and devices that are most definitely in use, some of which are in the public domain, as through wall surveillance radar and things like that, which the police openly use. But as soon as these weapons are mentioned, which are being used on people and which people are recording pulses from, etc., then off to the psych ward you go because
Absolutely. But
there's
you
no
know what?
public acknowledgement.
They do exist. And if you go onto YouTube and search for them, there are teenagers showing you how to create a microwave weapon.
Yes, yeah.
On eBay, you can buy things from China. They're listed under different names.
Very interesting. And you've been on eBay a lot, so you do know about that.
I do know because I've purchased some of them as a test. I even bought one from one of my friends. I said, I just bought this. I don't want it, but can you play around with it? And some of these things are really powerful. You can buy powerful lasers. You can buy a laser that can shoot 15 feet that way and slice something.
So these are laser
Laser.
equipment, laser weapons you're talking about?
They're lasers. They can cut paper from here to there. Like if I had this laser, I could cut my curtain right now.
And with an actual visible laser beam shooting out?
Absolutely.
Very interesting. And do you have any experience with any other kind of remote weapon that you may have purchased off of eBay?
I don't. But I've seen them.
You've seen them. You've seen
on eBay, not just on eBay. There are websites, and it's kind of cloaked. You have to get the keyword.
Yes. And in order to search, right?
Yeah, a lot of friends will email me links.
I know I've seen some of those links too. Actually, we should collect some of these links and put them on together. I will try to do that at some point. I do know one little what is it called? Sonic nausea, this little sonic projector where you can actually point and shoot and send out little ultrasonic waves to make somebody feel nauseous.
Yes.
And
I want to tell you, I met somebody on a forum. And it was basically, I'd asked the question in the forum, do you think like getting your PhD was worth it? So I was chatting with this guy. He had a PhD in nanotechnology.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I have his
nanotech is a big field these days.
Well, but this is the thing. What he did is part of his research was in developing an electrical nano that would grow. The keyword is grow.
Yes, I have actually covered a little bit of that. I've seen a lot of those little videos from these university students, in fact, who actually show how the nano grows.
It grows. Now, to me, when something grows, my mind is telling me that it's alive.
Yeah, in a way.
In a way.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him, I said, so, let me understand this. Is this alive?
Mm-hmm. And
when I responded that way, he got rid of his profile picture. He got rid of his explanation of his research. Disappeared.
That's very interesting.
But these are the people that are designing these things that are killing the planet.
They are. And there is whole fields now where they are merging biology with electronics, and they're doing it at the nano level, which makes it extremely dangerous and makes it highly unethical. But you see, they're doing it. I mean, this is of course they're calling it science. This they call the progression of science, right? But clearly it is ideological. It is being developed with deliberate thinking and ideology in mind. So it's a whole field that needs to be explored. I hope to do some of this exploration, but honestly, I'm just one person. We need whole armies of human rights activists and journalists working on this. We need help. We need people looking at all of this and writing about it and asking the right questions, because humanity is literally being assaulted in many, many different ways in these ways. We should probably talk about real estate mobbing as well, Lorraine, because you have some great definitions. So before we close today, let's focus on that as well.
Yes. So I created a flyer about what is real estate mobbing. Well, first, let's discuss what mobbing is.
Yes. Do you have a flyer on a digital flyer that you can share screen and show? Or
I do. Let's see. How do we share?
If you can find that little share button again.
Here it is. Yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you. I can see it now.
See it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the definition of mobbing compared to bullying. So this is where it comes from. In the 70s, there were a lot of people writing about what mobbing is in comparison to bullying. The primary difference between bullying and mobbing is that when somebody bullies somebody, it's usually an individual or groups of individuals
Mm-hmm. Okay.
targeting a person. When it becomes mobbing, it's sort of like in a school situation, or sort of like when an organization becomes involved. So what happens is, let's say kids being bullied in school. So
Yeah.
that's bullying. But if the teacher is aware of it and turns a blind cheek, and the principal decides to not get involved, then it's mobbing.
I see. Yeah. So where it appears that certain authority figures are either involved in some way, in some implicit way, or just turning a blind eye, just turning away.
Yes. And they're the people that are supposed to be protecting
Yeah.
us, especially children in school. If your teacher's not going to come to your rescue and stand up for you or go to the principal, what hope do you have?
Exactly. Very good question.
So, and it's similar to this. I mean, you look up to the police department, right? They're supposed to protect people and property and uphold the Constitution of the United States and all
Yeah.
of that. And they wear a badge, and they're supposed to protect the community.
Excellent analogy. Absolutely. Yes. So
So,
within the larger system, it's exactly like the school system,
yeah,
where you have teachers and principals to protect the children. And over here you have the police. Supposedly, in an ideal world, the police would protect the community. But when the police doesn't protect the community, either turns a blind eye or participates, then that, I guess, is what you're saying is called mobbing.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, back in the 60s and 70s, there was something called blockbusting. Blockbusting in real estate was basically when a landlord or whatever wanted to push a renter out to jack up the price. And what they would do is they would spread the slander around that, Black people are going to move in.
Oh, wow.
It was a horrific thing. It's outlawed now. And it's actually taught in real estate classes that blockbusting is against the law. But it has its turns. It's very different. I mean, it still happens.
Oh, I see. Wow. So I'm not catching exactly what the blockbusting is. Was it to move people out or to
Move
prevent people from
people out
moving
to
in?
decrease the prices of the rents to get a better rent.
Oh, I see. It moves the white people out saying Black people are going to move into this community, so it's
So it
time to
pushes them
leave.
out.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'm getting it slowly. Thank you.
It
Okay.
was, back in the day, that's what,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
don't think that way. But
Right, right.
but what
Gosh.
do you do to somebody that owns a home? They own a home. So how do
Yes.
you get them out? How do you force them out to steal their house?
Yeah, you
What
have to
you
find.
do,
Mm-hmm.
it's a method of harassing or clearing residents out of homes.
Mm-hmm.
This type of mobbing is used to force homeowners to vacate their property for a profit by vandalizing the home and the property with thefts, with break-ins.
Mm-hmm.
The neighbors are recruited to stalk and harass while monitoring the victim for mobbing. Pets are murdered. They poison the property. Then there's the slander campaign, the lies. They're spread to neighbors. And then there are paid contractors. I've actually witnessed this. In October of 2017,
Mm-hmm.
I saw these people in suits going around to the neighbors. They didn't come to my house, but they were looking at me as I was looking at them. I knew exactly what they were doing. So then there's the slander, the lies that are spread to neighbors by paid contractors.
Oh, I see. So you're suggesting that they were spreading slander about you.
Absolutely.
Okay, yes. Actually, other people have witnessed that kind of
I've witnessed that.
intrusion into the neighborhood. Well, I have actually witnessed it in my own neighborhood as well.
Yes. And then, of course, then there are the radiation assaults. And the mobbing tenants out of their homes is illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Stalking is a felony.
You may want to cursor down a little so we can see
Oh,
what.
okay.
Yeah. Radiation assaults, mobbing tenants out of their homes, of course. So all of this, I would imagine, is illegal. It seems to involve multiple crimes here.
Multiple. And because they involve so many people, there's the plausible deniability aspect. I mean, how do you name?
Right.
But what Hedden did in his lawsuit,
Mm-hmm.
he named like officers 1 through 12 or whatever. He didn't
He
name
did.
names. He
He
just
did. Yeah. And he also used the term ABC corporations, right? Because
yes,
he said there were some private corporations involved as well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that I would presume is, I have to go back and read the lawsuit again. I want, because I'm not sure exactly in what sense he meant the inclusion of those private corporations. Was he talking about private security services or who were engaged?
There wasn't a detail about that. He used the word contractors also.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
So, that it's ambiguous,
Yes.
but intentionally so.
Okay. Yeah. So he did maintain, he didn't name corporations involved, but he mentioned some kind of collusion there.
Yes. I also found out through another TI who did some research for me that my township actually has their own heliport.
That's interesting. I would imagine they all do, don't they, these days, the police departments?
Well, I don't know, but that would explain the helicopters over my house on a regular basis.
Very interesting. So you have had helicopters over your house?
Absolutely. I've got lots of photos. Mhm.
And has this been recent or over a
Oh,
period of
no,
time?
it's over 2 years.
Over two
It's over
years.
2 years that I've documented.
Were they simply flying past your house or were they hovering
Oh,
or?
no, they're over my house. They'd be on the side of the house, some of them directly over, and some of them are
Okay.
really close.
Okay. Yeah, I have certainly experienced helicopter flights continuously for years and often, in fact, marking lights out at night.
Oh,
Yes, and marking lights up when I get out of bed in the morning. So I had a helicopter to mark my arrival into the day and my departure into the night.
that's interesting.
Over my own bedroom or my own family den where I'm sleeping on the couch.
There was one incident. I can't claim that it was all of them or I wasn't paying close attention, but there was one incident where I'm sitting exactly where I'm sitting. A helicopter comes overhead, and
Mhm.
suddenly I get a shot in the head. I'm,
Oh, yes. Now, actually, that is something a few people have reported. I have certainly experienced it. I have received shots to the knee from a helicopter flying overhead. Mary Gregory, in her book, gosh, I'm forgetting the name. I think it's something called U.S. Government Microwave Experiments, talks about that. And also, I think Dr. Corkin Cherubini, in his book, has spoken about that kind of thing. So yeah, they have weapons, they have radiation weapons, most definitely, that they are using, that they are launching from helicopters, from
yeah,
planes, from drones, and we know the ground vehicles as well.
yes.
Yeah.
And also I want to mention, and I normally I wouldn't be interested in this, but I went onto the Department of Defense website and I placed myself on their mailing list, which is quite interesting, in fact.
Mhm.
So I receive on a daily basis about 5 or 6 emails from them, one of which is contracts.
Yes, I get those too. Yeah.
So you can actually see where the money is granted, how much, what city
Yes.
and state, what town. But every once in a while, they're putting a grant out there for anybody who wants their used weapons. So whenever the military wants the biggest and greatest, what do they do with the old stuff?
Yes, that's been a major problem. This has actually been reported over the last few years. John Whitehead has written a lot about it in Battlefield America, etc. It's the 1033 program, I think. Used military weapons end
Yes.
up in the local DOJ police departments. And in 1994, there was a memo of understanding between the DOD and DOJ for the police departments to use classified non-lethal weapons being developed by the DoD. So
Wow.
this is why a lot of the surveillance tech that's being used on people today is simply not disclosed. It's not in the public domain. I have done FOIA requests in Massachusetts asking for a list of surveillance technology that is being used on the streets in Massachusetts, and I was denied. And the reason for the denial, I was told, was for public safety. When obviously it was for public safety that I was asking as a journalist, please let us know what weapons you've got so we can figure out what the heck is going on our own streets. And the answer was, sorry, we can't tell you. We're afraid for public safety. No, they're not afraid. They are maintaining a secret is
It's a
what they're
secret.
doing.
Absolutely a secret.
Yeah. So horrifying what's going on. It's amazing. We've been having one heck of a conversation this morning, Lorraine. We're covering so many aspects of these targeting programs, and really good explanation of the real estate mobbing. Is this the flyer that you were talking about?
One. I have others. Let's see. Oh, new share. That's what it is. New share.
Okay.
Oh, here.
It had, oh, there.
Okay, so in Wikipedia, of course, it's quite brief. Wikipedia cites real estate mobbing is also known as property mobbing, is the use of mobbing techniques to constructively or forcibly evict a legal resident or owner from his or her dwelling. Real estate mobbing is a technique used by real estate speculators and sometimes euphemistically named tenant relocators to move residents from dwellings or off lots that developers or speculators want. Actually, the United Nations recognizes real estate mobbing as a worldwide cause of forced evictions. Amnesty International deems real estate mobbing to be a violation of human rights. And real estate mobbing is acknowledged as a problem in Europe and particularly in Spain. And it's associated with real estate speculation and rapid gentrification.
This is very interesting. Is that all that Wikipedia has on the subject? There's
That's
no
all that they have. But when you click on, I have the United Nations. Let's see. Let me get the new share.
Because what you have spelled out, is in much greater detail as to how they do it.
I thought I had it. Let's see here.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you, Lorraine, also was something that you had spoken about before with me, that to your knowledge, this kind of mobbing is going on pretty extensively.
Yes. And again, I'm not the only one. After I've shared some information on some of the TI calls, I've had a lot of women contact me. When I mentioned that they're pouring urine all over my house, I've had people call me up that have no pets and they still have urine poured all over their house. So
wow.
This seems to be something that they're doing. Also, I spoke to another person. She is a former, she's a whistleblower of the FDA. You may know her. I don't know if I should mention her name. I'm not going to. But she was actually, I called her the day they were in my house, the police and the mental health assessor. And I had her on speakerphone and she was recording the whole thing.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah. But what she said is, Lorraine, she says, get a black light and go around your house. Well, I took out a black light. And I was astonished. There was like this yellow stuff splattered all over my furniture. She said it's phosphorus.
I see. Why does she know anything more about it as to why?
What it is, because when they're surveilling you, like from drones and stuff, and they can see through into your house, they can see that yellow stuff. It's like not iridescent.
It's fluorescent. It's
fluorescent. So they can target you because of the yellow stuff.
Yeah, I've read reports of there being actually fluorescent nanotech as well. Again, from the aerosols that are sprayed in neighborhoods. And now they can do these localized spraying of aerosols so that in one particular area, perhaps even just over your own house and yard, you could be sprayed with something in particular.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I believe that part of the helicopters flying over is one, intimidation.
Right.
But they could be dropping this stuff on my property.
They could certainly be doing that, yes.
They
Because
could be.
it would look like an invisible kind of spray. You couldn't quite see it as it was coming down. Very, very interesting, especially because we're dealing with nanosprays. We're dealing with
Yes.
absolutely tiny particles, you know.
Yes, and actually, there's the one other thing is the ACLU had filed a claim against the police department.
Oh, okay. So this is coming back to your police department. That's right. So shall we switch back and come back to you, and you can stop sharing your screen and we can talk about that before we
Well, I have
close? Or do
let's,
you have something to show
I
us
have
online?
let's see.
Oh, yes, you had showed me the ACLU article earlier, I think, about them. So again, okay, so at this point, we're coming back to the police department and we're talking about another lawsuit that this particular police department has faced, right?
Yes. The ACLU claims Manalapan police harassed Black youth. August 25, 2004, Newark. The American Civil Liberties Union of New Jersey today filed a discrimination lawsuit against the Manalapan Police Department on behalf of 3 African American teenagers who said that officers searched them without justification and called them names while the boys' 3 white friends were told to go home. The police has harassed these kids based on their skin color. We receive discrimination complaints every day, but in this case, there were reliable witnesses, and the differential treatment the officers engaged in was blatant and brazen.
I was going to say those precise words.
Yeah.
Blatant and brazen pretty much
Well,
describes.
the ACLU did launch a lawsuit, and they won the lawsuit. I believe they won $250,000.
This is very interesting. And I'm looking at the date, it's March 30th, 2007. So you have a police department that's filled with some highly questionable characters, it seems like, who are engaging in racist and discriminatory behaviors, as well as incredibly sexist and misogynistic behaviors. In fact, the chief of police.
And these were kids. They were 17 years old. Do you know how traumatizing that is for a young teenager?
Yes, absolutely. You know, this is part of the whole traumatizing of society that's going on, that police departments, in fact, have been very much a part of, have been implementing in all of our societies. There's so many stories, there's so many news reports of police being incredibly aggressive, incredibly bullying, harassive, and, actually shooting people, right?
Yes.
For no reason whatsoever, breaking into the wrong house, shooting the dog, shooting pets, shooting children. All of this is horrifying, and it's time for people. I think there are actually some journalists who are speaking out about police misbehavior and police abuse.
Yes.
We need to keep doing that.
There have been actually several studies done, and I applaud this young woman. She's a graduate student, and I read her paper. I don't know where it is. I'd have to look for it. I'm not prepared today for it. But she researched police misconduct for her thesis.
Isn't that yeah, now it's come to the point where people can actually do PhDs on this.
Yes, and basically she made the determination that 30 or 40% of the police officers were bullied as children.
Oh, that's very, very interesting. So basically, you've got these abused children in grown-up costumes sitting in the police department and acting like giant bullying kids themselves. Yeah. Incredible, right? Well, Karen Stewart has actually often pointed out that it doesn't take much to become a police officer. It's like a high school education, right? I don't think you even need a basic college degree.
No, I'm not sure. That may have changed.
Okay.
I know in order to progress, I believe you have to have a college degree.
I see. Beyond a certain point, is it up their little hierarchy?
I honestly, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I don't know clearly, so it's something that I should look into. It's probably stuff that I should start learning about if I'm going to be covering police misbehavior in the future. So, Lorraine, did you want to check out of this page and come back so we can just wrap up over here?
Oh, sure.
There you go. Wonderful. So this has been such a wide-ranging and such an intense conversation. I thank you so much for coming forward and for keeping tabs on these issues in your neighborhood and on this whole phenomenon of real estate mobbing. as well. And, sending me that lawsuit, which is not the last that we've heard of it. I think I'm going to certainly be writing about it and reporting it. And I think other people would be very interested in seeing this lawsuit where a police officer sues the local police department and his chief of police for really terrible sexist behavior and worse, retaliatory behavior against his whistleblowing. So thanks so much for coming forward. And if you have anything else to share with viewers, by all means, just contact me again. We'll do another podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks very much, Lorraine.
Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. So thanks everyone for watching, and stay tuned for further news breaks. So have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.